Okay, it's 11 o'clock. I want to welcome everybody that's in attendance. This is a special series put on by PACE under our ProcureLA contract, which is a contract that was initiated through Mayor Bass's office, kind of primarily focused on, that program is focused on LA 28 that looks at all the sporting events leading up to the Olympics, including the World Cup, Super Bowl, the Women's PGA Open, NBA All-Star Game, and a lot of sports and entertainment activities throughout the county, and primarily focused within the city. But it's also brought to you on behalf of GoBiz. I'd like to introduce my colleague here, Veronica, and she could talk a little bit about GoBiz.
So good morning, everyone, and thank you, Andrew, for the kind introduction. So today, I just want to speak to you a little briefly about GoBiz. So it's brought to you by the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. So through GoBiz, PACE offers no-cost business consultation services to startups and operating businesses in the state of California. Our offerings include technical assistance, including procurement services, like you're receiving today through the training, and small business lending through PACE Finance Corporation, and also with participating lender partners. So thank you, Andrew.
Okay. All right, folks. So you could see here, this is, basically Meet the Experts series. As you can see, today is the first, where we're going to go over professional services. Next week, we're going to go over how to develop a bid budget for your proposal when you submit it. And at the end, we're going to have how to improve your chances to get approved for a small business loan. As you know, once you get contracts with the government or almost any entity, you're going to be expected to carry the startup costs, and which could be very expensive, okay, because you'll need to get maybe insurance and bonding. And your most expensive cost would be the cost of labor. And so those are the three subjects for this particular series. We also have an e-library. So this will be posted on our e-library, but you can go to our e-library at any time and view the different procurement and small business seminars that we put on throughout the years. Okay. Now, anybody that has any questions, we're going to ask you primarily if you could put it in the chat, and at the end of the presentation, we'll go ahead and field questions. Now, keep in mind, this is professional services, so that's actually contains a wide range. It could be anything from marketing, it could be event planning, it could be engineering and architect services. It can be like what we're going to do today with public advocacy and public and government relations outreach. And so what I'm going to do today is show you, this is an actual contract that my business partner and I did a joint venture and secured with one of the utility companies called the Water Replenishment District, that was in charge of maintaining underground water and aquifers and recycled water. And so this was what we call a grass tops contract, where we were meeting with stakeholders, landowners, school districts, government agencies, procurement directors, public works directors, and anybody that use water, including large malls and that type of thing. So as you can see, this particular proposal was it was a request for a statement of qualifications. So we got RFPs or invitations to bid, but this one was a statement of qualifications. And what's very unique about a statement of qualifications, it's about you presenting your expertise and actual contracts and services you've actually performed. And so, which is different than an RFP because they'll have certain requirements, but this one, they actually want to make a decision on who they're going to award the contract to based on your past performance. And that's why it's really important. Now, remember, at this time, when we secured this contract, my business had only been in existence 2.5 years, and they were asking, did we do major government briefings, and we did somewhat, but my professional services and experience from other work I did, I used to work in the government, California State Assembly, mayor's office, and other economic nonprofits. So the experience that I developed at those jobs, I brought with me to my company. So even though my company hadn't done some of this work actually, but I, as the CEO of my company, I had that experience, which means my company has that experience now. Okay, so I'm going to start off with how to source contracts. Okay, now for me, I had a partner as part of my network. So the bottom one here is I had a network, and he was approached that if he was interested in applying for this contract with the water district. And but so that's how it came to me. And he was a business partner and a good close colleague. And that's one of the ways. So sometimes we may call it word of mouth, but it's more than that. Okay, this is you building a network of industry professionals that can refer business your way or that will seek you out and want you to be a joint venture partner or a subcontractor. So that's really important. But as you can see here, the traditional ways, and this was one, okay, when we register our business under a vendor portal, a supplier contractor portal. And we need to make sure that we have our next codes and it will red flag it. So you can see here, there's government. When we look at government, we're looking at federal, state, county, city, okay, and not just local. You know, we could look at Orange County, we look at Ventura County, the city of Long Beach, you know, so we want to expand that portal registration. Utilities are very important. So this was a utility contract. Remember, utilities includes energy. Okay, so that's like the Edison, SoCal Gas, those kind of PG&E. It also includes water, and there's water districts up and down the state of California. Especially in California, it's very, very important water management. And that's what this was. And telecommunications, which is Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T. So those are actually billions of dollars of potential contract opportunities that the utility sector provides. Then you got private sector, okay? And a lot of large prime contractors, they're bidding on public works projects with the government, but you would be actually hired as a joint partner with a prime contractor. So a subcontractor strategy is a very potentially lucrative strategy to find contracts, to partner with large companies, develop the skill set that you're going to need, where you can go off and be a prime yourself, depending on the size of the project, and just know that. Target marketing. So let's say you have an expertise, a niche market that you were able to provide. And, you know, so one of the things, you know, I would encourage you, let's do a customer profile on your past contracts and see what industries they fall into. So if you find that you may have a niche in a certain industry, then we could look at that hard and we could try to go after contracts that are very similar in size and scope, and it's industry related. So what we're doing is we're increasing our business strategy, development strategy, and using our critical thinking skills to really identify what are our markets. Because if we identify a market that we have experience to service, or that we know that we can expand our ability to provide products and services to those different industries, that's taken a deeper dive. And I'll be honest, that's a sign of companies that are a little bit more successful. So we want to kind of develop that strategy. We need to understand it more. We need to incorporate it. And we actually call that a best business practice. As you can see, service and thing. Okay, former contracts. Okay, so that is an excellent source of contracting, especially if you get a contract, you want to perform, you want to overperform, you want to show them that you uh, uh, turned in a high quality product, and they're going to see your work product, and they're going to have confidence that you can do it again. So we would like to go back to potentially those contracts, and maybe that company can refer you elsewhere. You know, and especially if you get a contract and you're in the inside, you're going to want to look and see if there are other opportunities, because now you're in the inside, you can see what potential opportunities you can expand your services within that company, and maybe there's other departments. And so just keep that in mind. That's a very important strategy. And then, of course, your network. You know, so you want to look at joint venture partners, and that's what I did with a friend of mine. You know, so where I used to come for the state assembly and in the mayor's office, my partner, he did public relations, and he had contracts like with BNSF Railroad that was going into the port of Long Beach. And he was also a planning a board member for the city of Long Beach as well. So when we combined our expertise, it really rose our game. And so where maybe I was short on a couple of areas, he was strong, and it really increased our capacity to perform and made us attractive to the buyer. Industry stakeholders, you may know somebody, and this is kind of what happened with him. He had somebody says, hey, you know, there might be an opening with this water district. You ought to take a look at it. And he did, and he sent our request for statement of qualifications to me. We met, we went over it, we decided that we can do it. So anyway, so just keep in mind, these are strategies when we're looking for contracts. Okay, now I had mentioned it's very important that you look up your NAICS codes. With the state of California, they use United Nations Standard Product and Industry Codes, Services Codes. But NAICS codes is, you know, the North American Industry Classification System. And this is primarily throughout the country, multiple services. So if you don't just have one NAICS code, because you may not get notice of it. But as you can see here, you know, this very public relations agency. So that's one that we could do. And almost all of these 5 or 7 codes here, we have the expertise. And so we want to search that. We want to enter that in the vendor portals, whether it's private sector or government sector or utility sector. And then you'll remember these platforms and these vendor portals have a bid match component where it'll recognize the 6-digit code or the 8-digit code with UN codes. And you'll get notification that there's an opportunity for you to potentially to bid on, either a request for proposal, invitation to bid, or in this case, for this contract, a request for a statement of qualifications. So we went to the vendor portal. And as you can see here, and now this one I'm showcasing past performance, which is also important because we can look for contract cycles. But you can see the water replenishment district, when we went to their portal, there was a lot of opportunity. And we did public policy advocacy and public and government outreach. But you can see here, there's bonds, underwriting services, there's promotional items, products, there's, you know, there's multiple. All these agencies, they buy almost everything. So just keep that in mind. But these vendor portals are very important because we look at opportunities. We look at closed opportunities, and some of those have contract cycles. We could see who got the award. We could look those companies up. We can make a request through the Public Records Act where we can get our hands on maybe the winning proposal and how that was submitted previously. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We could see how the budget they put in, what kind of nuance things that they put in the proposal that made them stand out in a competitive market. So that's really important, the importance of all these vendor portals. And if you need some more instruction, you're going to make sure you get a hold of us and enroll on our program so we can sit down with you one-on-one. Okay, so this one, as I had mentioned, was a request for qualifications. And this particular program initially, now it changed over time, but they were initially looking for public relation firms, so to speak, because they were trying to promote what was called the GRIP program, Groundwater Reliability Improvement Program. So what they're trying to do is, this program captured storm water and recycled water in treatment plants to be utilized for watering, parks and recs, or reuse this water, recycled water. And so to bring down the cost, because in the state of California, we're dependent on the Colorado River, and we're dependent on the Northern California, some of the water from there coming down. So what was important for us is we needed to understand the agency and what's the science behind this particular contract. Because the better we understood that, the better we can address. Now, coming from government, we understood that, we have a very specific mission that some government agencies do, and they have missions that they need to accomplish, and they have benchmarks, and they're always looking for new methodologies and improved technologies moving forward. So that's what this program was about. And because this is kind of a high stake and a stakeholder outreach program, they were really looking for qualified businesses. And a little bit later, you're going to see some of the businesses. I think it was like 28 companies that had applied. Okay, so now let's talk here. So in a content for a request for a statement of qualifications, most contracts, not just this, RFPs as well, a little bit easier if it's just a commodity where you're selling a product, okay? But most proposals or requests for you to bid fall into three primary categories. So sometimes you could look them up, and like we worked on one with a client, it was with LADWP, and it was 488 pages. And many times we look at that and say, oh, that's too complicated. But no, that's not the way to approach it. Don't you say no first without taking a look at it. And if you need assistance, you get a hold of us and we can review the RFP or whatever the bid opportunity is together. And so here you can see, so the first section basically introduces the buyer, the department, whether it's private sector, utility, or government. It introduces that department and what they do and what kind of contract performance criteria they're looking for. Your scope of work, what are they looking for? And then we measure up what we can do and what we bring to the table. And maybe they have 10 things and we can do 8. And there's 2 that we're weak on. Then we're going to either hire the talent, we can hire staff, skilled staff, or we can subcontract, or we can joint venture. And that's what we did, myself and my partner. You can see proposal requirements and support documents. So that's, now they're talking about the formatting of the proposal, making sure we follow specific directions. And then they have other support documents in there, which could be insurance, bonding, adherence to the Family Leave Act, no collusion. Those are things that, especially if it comes with government dollars or ratepayer dollars in the case of utility companies, They're really, these are kind of sort out folks to make sure that whoever gets the contract is of high ethical standard. And we want to give contracts to, because it's a risk to give a contract out to a company if they can't perform. We need to make sure that we can mitigate the risk and that we're confident that the companies that we issue the contract awards are of high caliber. And same thing. And then generally, like I had mentioned, if it's taxpayer dollars or ratepayer dollars, the agencies generally have to establish that they have the authority to use these taxpayer dollars or ratepayer dollars to contract. And that's what's important. But that's kind of what the sections are in this particular company. Excuse me, our invitation to bid. Okay, so now the first step is when you look at this, is this really a viable opportunity that for us? So we need to be able to read it, we need to understand it. And if it looks like it's in our wheelhouse, or in this case, my partner looked at it initially and says, I need to bring somebody else in who's an expert, somebody I trust, and we were longtime friends and colleagues. And he contacted me. And so then we went over it together. So we looked at, okay, what industry is this? Well, this was utility in water. And remember, water is one of the old riparian rights, they call it in the law, is one of the oldest governmental regulatory departments in the country, in the world, regulating water and land use. So it kind of falls into that. If we don't have water, we can't grow crops, we can't maintain our properties correctly, and so it's a quality of life product that we need. So we understood the industry, and both of us coming from government, we really understood how to research that and identify exactly what it is. Because I'm going to tell you, as a former a procurement officer on a different contract, I am looking for people that understand can demonstrate solid understanding what the opportunity is and what we need you for. Okay, contract amount estimates. So was this a small contract? Is this a large contract? So this particular contract was $250,000, and for initially for 1 year, and it turned out to be, it could turn into a 3-year contract, so that was close to $1 million. And then so we understood that that was a dollar value, which really increased the competition and made us really drill down, because we wanted this contract to be competitive because it was worth our time. You can see the kind of contract. So this was kind of a standard contract. I have IDIQ. That's more in the government, federal government, indefinite duration, indefinite quantity. So that could be like you're on call, but it could have multiple potential opportunities. Those are good contracts to get. Then we look at the important timelines. So we got dates when it's due. In this case, we had to submit an intent that we were going to bid. So an intent letter and giving the buyer notice that we're going to go for this. So they know. So that, because as a buyer, as a procurement or a proposal manager, we want to scale. Okay, let's see who's applying, because we're gonna vet you all out. They're gonna look at our website. They're gonna look at our social media. They're gonna, they're gonna make sure that they know who we are in our past performance. Okay, if there's a mandatory pre-bidders meeting, if there's a mandatory pre-bidders meeting where you go and you do a walkthrough or you meet with the department where they're talking about the contract, if it's mandatory and you don't attend, you can't bid because it's mandatory. Sometimes they're not mandatory, but I still encourage you to go because they're very, very important. There's a question and answer. So maybe you read as we go through the proposal or the RFP or the RFQ. Is there something we're not really sure about. And so we want to make sure that we ask the question, but there's usually deadlines. And I work with a lot of clients, and it happens many times that by the time we find something we're not sure about, we it's the time to ask questions and get an answer has passed. So now we got to speculate. And but the more that you understand procurement proposals, sometimes we can make sense out of it ourselves. But we don't want to miss that. We want to make sure that we ask the question and we can get an answer, or at the very least, if we missed it, that we get our hands, because they're going to answer, and it's open to everybody, and that's an addendum. We're going to have to acknowledge that we read the Q&A, and somebody else who you're competing with may have asked that question, so we can get better clarity. So just keep that in mind. Submission dates. We've had clients that they waited to the last minute to finish, and they only had 10 minutes to turn in the proposal because they had a certain website that they had to turn in the proposal, and they missed the deadline. You miss it by 1 minute, by 1 second, you're knocked out. And you might spend 100 hours on a proposal. It just depends. So just know, these are very, very important things. But if I'm going to give you a contract, I need to make sure that you can follow directions. So if you're doing everything at the last minute, you're probably not the type of person that I want to give the contract to. And sometimes very highly qualified businesses, they take it for granted. They can get it done and they miss the deadline. And I'm going to tell you, that's not a best business practice. Okay. Now that we realize, okay, we submit the due, and then there's a potential that we find out there's a contractor interview dates. So they'll give you notice that upon the review of the proposals, we're going to develop a short list, and only those candidates that make the short list. In this case, it was 5 companies, at least in our category, that made the short list. And then they talk about the award notice date and the start date, which is very important. Now, minimum qualifications. So that's very important. Now, keep in mind, buyers don't want companies that could barely make the minimum qualifications. They want somebody who can exceed these qualifications, because that's what they're looking for, especially under this type of contract, statement of qualifications. They want proven companies with long performance histories and high level of expertise and performance. So just keep that in mind. Do you have the business license? So sometimes I had a business license out of Pasadena, but not in this. I think the water district, the headquarters is in Paramount. So upon award of the contract, then we can go get the contract, because that pulls a trigger when we need to beef up and follow through. So we don't have to have a bond in place. We don't have to have insurance in place. We don't have to have the business license in place until we execute the contract, and that's the time that we need to go get it. But in the proposal, we got to demonstrate the ability that we can do all those things, that we're qualified to get a bond, to the certain insurance rate, and so forth. Anyways, and remember, labor, if it's a bigger contract where you have to do prevailing wage, or union work, or, so these are all very, very important factors to determine if we can perform. Okay, so now I'm going to start introducing the different sections. Okay, so now we're looking at the agency. Who's the agency, or who's the corporate? Who are they? Okay, the department that we're dealing with within the agency or within the corporation. What is their historical mission? The more you understand that, the better you're going to be able to speak their language and can demonstrate that I fully understand what you're looking for. I know what you're trying to do, and we're here to help you as part of your team. That's really the approach that we want to do. Okay. What is the entity's purpose? Who are the clients that they service? Who are their constituencies? So the water replenishment district, their constituencies were small cities, parks and rec, large like malls that had large property owners, school districts. So that's who they were servicing. So it really wasn't the individual consumer like you and I, turn on the water faucet. These were government entities that needed water, were dependent on water to preserve the assets that they have, whether it's land or vegetation or etc. And so it's important that you understand who the constituency. Okay, so the department requesting the product, well, who are they? So like for instance, with the state of California, they have like 250 different departments. Well, who is the department that's asking for services or products? We want to understand that, because that knowledge is power, and it can help us tweak, our proposal to make us more competitive, and etc. Okay, so now generally there's the introduction of this RF request for the qualifications. It introduced what the agency is. So they kind of explained it. They understand that, this is groundwater management and recycling, and they were in charge of maintaining underground reserve water, basically to the, like in the Whittier Narrows area and the Montebello forebay, they call it, where they store a lot of groundwater that can be pumped out and reutilized up and down. Now, the Water Replenishment District has 5 different districts, and basically serves most of LA County. And so we understood the different districts, and each of these districts had aquifers where they stored groundwater. And so it was really important to understand the science and a little bit of the engineering that we're not responsible for, but we need to understand what they do and why they're doing it. And that's really going to help us when, and especially this is a stakeholder outreach. We had to know enough that we can explain that, and then we can bring the engineers in if there's meetings where we're meeting with elected officials or high-level department heads, that so we can explain on a public relations level, like our level, but it's detailed enough, and then bringing in the experts that can talk about the nuance science behind it. Okay, then here's another one: description of the department and project or the initiative. So here was the GRIP program. So we understood that they're trying to, the groundwater reliability improvement program is established to kind of offset and supplement the water that we're getting from the Colorado River and the Sacramento Delta. And this is storm drain and natural water, underground water rivers that we can tap into. So clearly it's very efficient. It's recycled water, it's captured storm drain, it's natural water coming in underground rivers, and which is really important that we can supplement water that we got coming in. And you can see how big just Southern California is and how much water we use. So it's very important. Okay, the project's purpose and service goals. So we want to look at that again. So we're not just getting an overall understanding. We're trying to understand the specific deliverables and goals that the buyer is looking for. And remember, we're team members. We don't do everything, but we're a unique and intricate part of the success of this agency to promote the GRIP program. Now, I may be talking a little bit more about water and utilities, but this is the kind of critical thinking and analysis skills for any professional service that you're going to provide. So just please know that. And so I'm actually demonstrating an actual contract performance and successful contract awarded to show that these are the steps that we took. And each industry be a little bit different, but these are the same basic analytical steps that you should take. Okay, so now it goes a little bit deeper, okay, in the science of the GRIP program, what they're looking to do. And they're talking about, 21,000 acre feet per year. I didn't know what that meant, but I learned what it meant because part of our preparing for this contract is we met with the engineers at the water district, and they helped explain in more detail of what they're doing, how they manage the water, where they're putting it. So it really helped us further improve our understanding. So when we're out there outreaching to the stakeholders, government officials, senior city and landowners, school districts, of smaller cities, county, we knew enough that we can articulate it, and then we bring in the experts to go over it. But here you can see, so you can see here is sustain reliable supply for replenishing the water basin districts, Central Basin, West Basin. These are major water districts that are responsible for maintaining water to millions of people throughout the state. And in this case, Southern California or the LA County area. So you can see, so these are some further details. And I would expect you as an expert in your field to be able to understand this. Okay. Now, it's not rocket science, but it definitely is science and a public utility service that needs to be provided to the community, business and residential at some point. And so that's important. So your understanding is critical. Okay, so now here are the specific contract needs, okay, that they're looking for. Okay, so identifies the contractor or supplier category that they're looking for. So, okay, we're looking for an engineer, we're looking public relations firm. We're looking for a marketing and advertising firm. We have people that can do community outreach. And, so these are the different categories that they're looking for. We need to match it with who we are. Okay, they need to match what they're looking for with the actual contract. And I talked about NAICS codes, which were very important, okay? Identify, are you a prime or are you a subcontractor? Now this contract, they were looking for some major primes and some high qualified, what we call tier one subcontractors. So generally the prime is number one, and then generally subcontractors fall under tier two or tier three. But a tier one subcontractor means that you are a specialist in this particular product or service that you're providing. And that's what they were looking for. So they were looking for highly qualified companies, whether you were a prime or a sub. And you'll see that in a little bit. Okay, you could see here a company's capacity to fully perform. So that's what a statement of qualification is that you've actually performed and you can demonstrate a history. We had a contract, something very similar in size and in scope, and the type of services that you're looking to be performed. And they're weeding out and trying to find the best qualified candidates. We want to get it to the short list, and that's what they're looking for. So, and also in this description, some of these are very difficult, because sometimes they'll ask you, do you have 5 years experience? And in our case, and in my case, I didn't have 5 years. I had 2.5 years as business experience with my company, but because of my other background in work and in the government work, I had, I don't know, 15 years at that time of experience. So we were able to bring that professional experience to the table. to satisfy that they're looking for highly qualified individuals. This is determine the talent and skilled staff level. Do you have the right people in place that can do the work? Because I guarantee you, generally, the CEO, he knows how to manage a business, but on a very specific type of services, he's probably not the person. So we want to find out who is maybe the project manager who can do it. In our case, it was us, the top level, because we had that background. But we had to demonstrate that we had the background. Anyways, so you could see here. So these are the different things we had. There was a bond requirement. So we had to get qualified for a $250,000 bond, a performance bond. And a performance bond is important because it guarantees if we got the contract and we don't perform for some reason, they're going to fire us and they're going to cash in that bond and find another contractor that can finish the project. So it's very important. And at that time, I didn't have a bond myself, but my partner did. And so that's why it's real important to maintain your credit to show that you got profit margin when you do your taxes. Because if you're hiding all your income, you're not going to qualify for higher bonds. So keep that in mind. You know, these are nuanced things that we need to learn as a company and to perform. Then we saw here, okay, do you have the financial capacity? So I had mentioned earlier, if you don't have, let's say it's going to cost you 50 grand to start. For us, under this contract, we spread it out, and we had to front about 25,000 of our own money until we got paid, and we didn't get paid. And we had to at the end of the month, we turned in the invoice in accordance to how we're supposed to, and then we got paid 15 days later. So for us, we realized it was a net 45, and between us, we had enough money that we know we can at least cover the startup costs in the beginning. And if there's any special products and materials you need to buy. Okay, so this was a public outreach program, as I had mentioned. So here was specific deliverables that we needed to perform. So this is when we look, can we do each of these categories? So when we look here, you know, outreach and coordinating strategies, yes, both me and my partner are experts in that arena. Can we do teaching like I'm doing right now? Yes, both of us have done webinars and instructional briefings to elected officials and to CEOs and major stakeholders. Polling and surveys, that was one of the areas that I did. I had a small contract with the city of Los Angeles to do a polling and survey of businesses in the Boyle Heights area. It was about 3,000 businesses total. So we have that expertise. Focus group development. I did that when I was in the mayor's office because we were trying to promote uh, uh, business development and property management in the valley where I work in the San Fernando Valley. So we used to pull stakeholder focus groups to find out issues and challenges and support in the community. Those are really important. Stakeholder engagement, you know, so, you know, it just turned that both my partner and I had done a lot of that, you know, and so that's why it's really important that you understand your partners, their performance history, and that of your skilled staff. Some of your staff, you know, may have done this work, and that means that your staff has done it. Your company has that ability too. So, you know, so we want to look at professional experience as well. Okay, developing education material. So that's curriculum development. Both my partner and I, we've done that before, but we actually brought a junior partner in, was an advertising firm, and they've done that kind of work as well. They were more in the Spanish media sector, but they had that expertise. And so we brought them on as a junior partners that could handle media plans, same thing. So we brought them in and they help us put a media plan. We've done that, but not to the level that they were looking for. So anyways, you could see here. So these are the different deliverables that we had to make sure that we can do. And we realized that out of this, I don't know, maybe there's 12, we could do 8, 9 solid. And then we had to bring other folks in to that we subcontract to, and to provide these additional services. That way we were able to check all the boxes. Okay, now we talk about the format. So this is important. If you do not follow the format that they're asking for, if you can't follow the rules, then why should we give you the contract? If, because we want strict adherence to how you turn in the proposal, the sequence of topics that need to be provided, and we want to give it to someone who can follow all the directions, and that's really important. And so here they're talking about, now here we couldn't do more than 15 pages, and I said, well, no, I have a lot more I want to present. Well, we can't. We can't turn in 16 pages. We got to turn in 15. We got to abide by it. So which forced us to prioritize how we were presenting ourselves and our qualifications and our past performance and what we think we can do or what we will do if awarded the contract. So that's really important. And as you can see here, 5 copies, with the first one being signed in pen, because we know that if we made the short list, these 5 copies are going to go to whoever's the interviewers, and we understood that. Okay. So now the submittal. So here's the sections that the statement of qualifications covered. They wanted a cover letter. So generally in the cover letter, you're giving them notice that we're applying. This is who we are. Signed by the individual that can bind our joint venture into a contract. We want to make sure we acknowledge if there's any addendums. So if there's an addendum and you don't acknowledge that you read it, that could kick you out. Because don't waste my time as a procurement proposal manager and you're turning in something that we eliminated or that we asked for. We also asked for that needed to be included in the proposal. So that's another way we can get rid of people, because you're not following directions, and you didn't see all the information that was put out there. So that's really important. Then we went into company qualifications. We're going to show that a little bit in a minute. Service categories. So they wanted us to divide up in the different service categories to show them who we are and who's going to manage that and what we're going to be able to do. Because remember, this is a statement of qualifications to show we've done it in the past. So it's really important. And then clearly key staff expertise and qualifications. Okay, now here's the cover letter that what we just talked about. Sometimes they call it a transmittal letter. Okay, that's signed by somebody authorized to sign the contract. Okay, and here's the sample cover letter that we submitted. Okay, so we acknowledge the agency. We acknowledge that this was a statement of qualifications that we were going to perform upon. We addressed the proposal manager, which was Mr. Law, and we talked about the areas that we thought that we can perform. We outlined them clearly so they know that we were going for the whole ball of wax. Okay, and then my partner, now we made him, even though I did the majority of a lot of the work in stakeholder outreach and that, because I had a large professional network that I was able to tap into. My partner was the contract administrator. So he managed the insurance, he managed the overseeing the media plan. So we divided the deliverables between us, but he was the lead agency and we were a joint venture. So I did most of the work and he did the contract administration, but he did a lot of work too, because he was very skilled as well. And so, as you can see here. Okay, let's move on. So here's the actual proposal that we submitted. So his company was CCE Consulting, and my company was AB Consulting Strategies. And so at that time, I was home base, and he had a storefront, but we could tell that this is a clear joint venture. Okay, so now I didn't put his qualification, but I put mine. So here was the qualifications to show that I was a qualified professional with expertise in exactly community outreach, governmental outreach, stakeholder outreach, government and public relations and business relations. And as you can see, you know, I'm aging myself because this was 10 years ago. And so that means I have 35 years experience now. But you can see here, we want to get right to the point. If you look at this, there's no fluff. I'm getting right to the point to get to show that I have the expertise, and my partner did as well. So there's no question. We are talking their language, we're answering their questions, and we're showing like a mirror. See, we can do it, and because we've done it in the past, and so that's real important. Okay, and now here, now not only we're saying we can do all of this, they in the statement of qualification they're looking for past performance. So this particular contract was a former business partner of mine as well. I came out of the state assembly. He came out of the state senate in the valley, and he was the one that convinced me to open up my business. And then he contracted with me, and so one of the contracts we got was the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, you know, and the California covered California, and our job was to put stakeholder workshops together and meetings and do conferences where covered California can come. Is more in Southern California because that's my area, but we also did it in Northern California, Sacramento area, Bakersfield, but that's what we did. So here we talk about what we did. Okay, and generally in statement of qualifications, we want to tell them what we did, what was the assignment, is there any unique challenges that we confronted and that we overcame, and ultimately what was the return on the investment to the buyer? And because now we're answering this because we want to get this contract with the water district, and we want them to know that we fully understood what we needed to do. Now this is healthcare, but it had high deliverables, in which we did. And as you can see, and it was goal oriented. We accomplished the mission. Okay, now here we're talking about. Now here's some of the other areas. So services including media interviews. So I've really never done a media interview. Okay, business organization and stakeholder outreach we did. So these were some of the nuanced major deliverables that we had to be able to demonstrate. And so I talked about the unique features of the American Care Act. You can see this. So we showed them examples of exactly what we did. And you can see that our average for the workshops, we were finding stakeholders to bring in primarily business leaders with large workforces and trying to explain the Affordable Care Act. And, you know, I think at some point that a company that had 50 employees or more had to adhere to this and provide benefits. But if they were less than that, we still wanted to make sure that they could their employees could take advantage of the covered California, so they have a healthy workforce. And a healthy workforce is a productive workforce. And so this is kind of the nuanced thinking that we wanted to demonstrate to the water district, that we had critical thinking skills because we performed these kind of services in the past. Okay, now we're going to the categories of that were identified in the proposal. So here we go. So key staff. So it's my partner, who was really the contract administrator, myself, who was basically the project manager, and we had a junior partner, Laura Castillo, that she did a lot of public outreach, did some polling. She was our support staff to make sure they kept us on point. So that was real important. But you can see in here, in each of these categories, we explain what the deliverables were and what we're going to be responsible for under this contract. Okay, and here's, they wanted to say, okay, what's the breakdown? So it shows CCE and my company, we were partners, we were joint venture partners. And then we listed each of our respectful project assignments. And, so as you can see here, that's how we outlined it. Made it clear, they could understand what the breakdown is. There's no question. And to show that we get it. And we're assigned tasks based on our skill sets. Okay, now this was, it kind of goes to our key staff for both companies. And, so we have a partnership team. And so we end up, it was 4 of us, but we end up hiring, like in polling and a little bit of outreach, some people that did some canvassing. And so we had the entire packet to be able to perform. And, so we explained, especially because this was what we call a grass tops outreach, where we're looking for senior stakeholders to make presentations to. We wanted to demonstrate to them that we had that skill because we've done it in the past. Okay, now here's all the companies. I think it was 28 of them that bid on this. And so ultimately, even though they did multiple awards, Dakota Communications is a very large, successful public relations firm. So they became the lead. And then our company, CCE and AB Consulting Strategies, we were like the community and direct outreach entity. So we were the ones that were actually out in the field, recruiting people, establishing meetings, doing general briefings in the beginning. And then we had larger conferences to promote the GRIP program, and later the contract changed. But as you can see, we were competing with a lot of qualified companies. And there's some companies in here, when I look under our section, in the purple, there's a couple of companies there that when I was working in the assembly office, we had the Northridge earthquake, and I saw a couple of these companies were working, the earthquake had contracts when they were trying to rebuild the San Fernando Valley, the damage and the construction of rebuilding the infrastructure. You can see here in the green, Sherrill, that's a very large company. They were based out of USC at some point. You see John Schwada, he used to be a reporter. And I forgot what channel, 2 or 4, one of them, big channels. So we had a lot of expertise and a lot of competition. And at first, when I looked at this, I said, oh man, I don't know we're going to get it. But we said, let's not say no. We know that we brought a high quality product and service to the game. We had to be confident in what we can do because we've done it in the past. So we made sure we presented ourselves at the same level. Okay, so now they interviewed all the candidates, and then we got this letter. Okay, and so it turned out that we were one of the companies that got selected for interview. So here was official notice that we made the short list. And they ended up giving the contract out to about 7 companies, and you'll see that in a minute. But we made at least the interview list. Okay, now if you get an interview, that's showtime. Because up until this point, we're only displaying ourselves on paper. This is who we are. This is what we've done. But it's just like you go in an interview and you're looking for a high executive job. And I said, well, it looks really good. Like you've done a lot of stuff. Then they're going to put down the resume and they're going to ask you straight up, now tell us who you are. And that's showtime. That's time for us to get better. But you can see here. So we need to make sure that we review the notice for interviewing, the location, the time, the point of contact. We need to make sure if we get that interview, we're on time. Okay, we follow directions. I worked on another contract where I was in charge of doing the interviews. It was transportation. And we had one of the companies that was not only 5 minutes late, but instead of only having 5 individual presenters, they brought 20. And that was just so over the top, and clearly they fell to the bottom. But we want to be able to follow in direct directions because this is showtime. We need to be able to perform, be able to articulate. So you can see here, acknowledge the interview participation with the agency, the point of contact. Let them know, yeah, it's going to be us. Here's 3 or 5 of us. At this, there was 4 of us that actually went to the interview. Okay, we assigned presentation roles. So we had somebody who was the point, and then the other 3 individuals were more of support, or that we presented a certain aspect of answer certain questions of that proposal as they were being asked. And so when you show diversity and everybody has a role, that really communicates that you're a team, that you're capable, and that you get it. And everybody has, not one person doing everything, because as a team, you increase your capacity and your performance ability. So just keep that in mind. If they allow you to bring materials to leave, you can. I'll tell you the truth is when I did interviews, I really didn't want anybody to bring materials because I already had your proposal and I want to hear it directly from the horse's mouth and who you are. So I can gauge you as a professional. I can determine your level of expertise, where you fit in the puzzle to provide services. So those are all real important things. And you got to remember, there's always going to be a trick question you haven't prepared. So we got to be ready that something could come up and that we didn't prepare for. And that's just kind of to rattle you to see how if you can maintain your professional integrity during the interview process, because we want individuals that could think on their feet, that understand the importance of the interview, because if they can perform well in this interview, chances are they're going to be able to perform and overcome potential challenges in when we're performing the scope of services. So that's all real important. Most of the interviews are generally for 30 minutes. If you're there longer, that's better because that means they're taking a deeper interest in you and want to get more information out of you. Okay, so here was the actual award letter. And so you could see in the second paragraph, they gave it to, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 companies, roughly. And now there's 5 districts in the in the water district, and 5 separate districts. And it turned out that we ended up getting District 1 and a little bit of District 2, which was the main flow of water from down the San Gabriel River, and we're most with Montebello Forebay and in El Monte, there's some areas there that there was major water aquifers. So we ended up getting the main corridor, and which we were really excited to get. Now, as you can see here, so this is a notice of award. So now it was time for us to beef up and get the contracts, get the bond, make sure that we got the staff in place to move forward. But this was the official notice. Okay, so now upon executing the contract, okay, now we got insurance, we've got the performance bond that we needed to do. Okay, we make sure that we brought in the media company and that we signed in our junior partner to come in to help us. Okay, we really didn't need any necessary equipment, but under the media, we needed some special software so we can do. Now, the media was more in the Spanish market media, but we had an expert partner that we brought in to do that, but he had to, so we had to provide some expenditures on that. Contract compliance. Okay, remember, once we get the contract, that's not it. We got to make sure, okay, we got to do reports. We got to meet with the project manager on a biweekly basis. We got to turn, if there's any challenges, we got to turn that report in. We got to we did a weekly report that we turned in to whoever the project manager was. We got to make sure that we had our payroll service in place, that we had, anyway, so there's certain performance metrics that we need to turn in to show that you can abide by the contract. Okay, we show what our financial and payroll and accounting services. So everything I had just mentioned, okay? It's very important that you develop a good, positive relationship on who the project manager is. I have a client that was awarded a contract with Cal EPA, and it was a really nice contract, kind of in the same area, and it was the public relations and community outreach, but she had a problem. They had an interpersonality conflict with the project manager for the Cal EPA, and it turned out that they cut her contract down by a third because she couldn't get along. And they were fighting, so which is ridiculous. As a qualified professional, we don't have to like each other to work and to perform. So that's important. So maintaining a good relationship with whoever the agency and the project manager is important, because that project manager moving forward can recommend new contracts. And that's what happened with us. And I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, so right now it's time to perform high quality. We want to kill it. We want to be able to perform at a high level, and because that's the kind of work ethic, and professional integrity we want to present. Okay, so here's kind of the contract. So if we look here at the very bottom, it says here in this last paragraph too, it says, if the board desires to modify the agreement to provide for such a district to comply with provisions according to the code. So what happened, this is really unique. So we got the contract, and it turns out 5 months into the contract, one of the board of trustee members passed away. So then they froze all the performance. So we thought we were going to work for a year, and we only worked for 5 months. So then it changed from the GRIP program to they were looking to build a state-of-the-art, only the second one in the country, a water treatment plant in Pico Rivera, and by Whittier Narrows, because that's a major area where the San Gabriel River comes down. So now the mission of the contract changed from promoting GRIP, which we still kind of did, to now we're looking to build a new facility, a state-of-the-art facility. So the board of directors had the authority under this contract that they could change the mission. So instead of going out to rebid and delay the whole process, they kept us. And actually, then it turned only into Dakota and our companies, only us three companies, and we were a joint venture. So let's just say two that actually moved forward when they redid the contract again. So just know that things can change. And typically we call those change orders, where you're contracted to do here, but something's happened and now we're going to change your scope of work to perform. And but that's what's important. That's why it's important to read these contracts. So we understand what the leverage, because once you execute the contract, it opens up an opportunity for you to renegotiate as well. Okay, because maybe, and maybe the buyer has seen some subtle differences now and maybe want to change the scope a little bit. So that those things happen because it's business. Okay, and business change, things change. Sometimes the finish line changes. But it's important that we understand it. And if you end up getting a contract, you make sure if you want something reviewed, you can bring it to us and we can help you with that. Okay, now, as you can see here, ultimately, here's the building, the water treatment plant that they built. So we thought we were only going to be talking about groundwater and having the different parks and recs and property owners utilize groundwater, instead of depending on the major water from the Metropolitan Water District, from Colorado River and the Sacramento Delta, that we can use local water, which is important. It's efficient and serves the same basic purpose if you're washing or watering for vegetation or for cleaning. This water was just as well. But this was the second high level treatment plant in the country. And so our mission changed. So for us, it was a major accomplishment. And we really, we were performing at a high level in the beginning, and they kept us, and they wanted us to perform. They changed our mission. So then we started meeting with elected officials, churches, large property owners, to get their buy-in and their support. And we helped put together, pulled experts from the community. We tapped into our personal networks to find people that were stakeholders in the community. And I had a friend that still lives in a place called Los Nietos, which is in Whittier. And he used to be work in the city attorney's office here in LA. But he was a community advocate for many, many years. And we met back in college back way when. And he was a community advocate. And we told him what we're doing, if he'd be willing to be an expert witness. And he said he would be, to testify in front of the Public Works Commission for the city of Pico Rivera, because at the end of the day, they had to buy into it. And same thing, there was another company with a Cordova Corporation. And Cordova, like Dakota, major outreach, planning, design, did a lot of infrastructure development. So we kind of tapped into our network of professionals. They were expert in community development. They were experts in business and land use development and in public policy advocacy and supporting public policy opportunities. So we tapped into that, and we were able to bring, I don't know, maybe 10 major stakeholders that spoke on behalf of the water district and community support. So we actually were responsible for getting a bus, and we brought in maybe about 30 residents of the local community, which was basically a 5-mile radius of neighborhood councils, of chambers, churches, schools, business owners, and business owners had large land holdings, and they all spoke on behalf. We briefed them. We had our experts come in and brief them, and we held several community town hall meetings, so to speak, to tell them what we're looking to do. Because some people, they say, wow, we don't want that kind of development here. It's going to add to our traffic, and is it safe? And there was a lot of things that were coming up. But we realized that those are the challenges, and those were some of the reports that we were giving to the water district, to our project manager. And we had multiple meetings with them and making sure that our strategy met with what they were doing. And sometimes they said, well, I don't think we want to do that. So we had to explain why. Well, I think we should bring this community in because here's the political reality within the community. And this is how all the parties integrate. And if we can get these multiple categories of stakeholder individuals and residents and organizations to support it, I think that's going to help us close the deal. And at the end of the day, that's what happens. You can see how large this complex is. A state-of-the-art water treatment plant. And I'd have to say it's a little bit of a bucket list thing. I never thought that I would be involved in something like this. I've been involved in a lot of things. Was working in the government and working here, like trying to help you guys, and meet goal. But you can see how big this project eventually turned out to be. And we didn't when we first got this contract, we had no idea that it would evolve into this. And so for us, it was a great accomplishment. It really made me grow in my ability to articulate and to communicate, and tapped into skill sets that I forgot I had. And my partners, or relying on my partners and realizing that they brought things to the table that I couldn't do, and that really increased our capacity to perform. And so this was, I'm just showing this. It's not a thing where I'm trying to bring accolades to our two companies at the time, but to show you that's the kind of critical thinking and methodology and approach, and to be able to articulate and to speak their language in order to get a contract, and who knows where it could evolve into. And so I wanted to show you an actual successful contract awarded that we were able to secure. And even though we didn't make 750,000 because of the delay, we ended up making about 400,000 between the four partners. And so it was well worth our time. It really increased our aptitude and our understanding of business and going after professional service contracts. And with that being said, here's my contact information. Please take it down. And so that's my basic presentation. And if we have any Q&A, I don't know, Veronica, if you're there, that I'm ready.
Oh, okay. So we did have one question in the beginning about, would the professional services such as content writers be considered a professional services?
Yes, contract writers.
Yes, content writers.
Yeah, content. Yes, that's professional services.
Okay.
You're writing content for somebody.
And
Okay.
then someone asked if today's webinar is being recorded and if you'll receive a copy. Yes, today's attendees will receive a copy of today's recording.
And we'll create a PDF of the slideshow, and we'll send that out as well.
Okay. So Magnolia asked,
We'll get to you, Lou. Okay, I see your hand raised. But anyway,
Okay.
Victoria asked what?
If this company handles janitorial services in-house, or if you can work with contractors.
So just remember, even though this webinar was about professional services, whether you're in construction, janitorial, commercial, or private sector, we could work. You're an event planner. It doesn't matter what service you're in. We have the ability to work with you. This is just a showcase of how we sourced the contract, how we applied and developed a proposal, the steps that we took, how we got awarded, how the contract it changed, evolved into something new. So those are all possibilities that can happen.
Well, there are a lot of accolades to you, thanking you for using a real case. So that's good. A real life case. Yeah.
Well, you're welcome. And you can do it too. Okay.
Okay.
You have Lou raise his hand.
Oh, he did? Okay, let me skip to him. Okay, Lou, you should be allowed to speak now.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey. Okay. Thank you. First, yes, thank you for sharing this rare case, and especially your mention about this case regarding the public outreach. So I have a question. Since we are a small consulting firm specialized in the Chinese community in the Southern California, so I'm wondering. We are new in this government procurement in the field, so we're wondering, for your case, do your case cover for Asian community, and how we can approach for this kind of opportunity?
Well, so just keep this in mind. You know, every company has its own niche market.
Mhm,
And so we just got to understand what you do, who's your traditional market, how we
mhm,
can penetrate that market, how we can source contracts, and you know, you register in the different vendor portals for government. Let's look at utilities. And if you have specialty markets within the Chinese market, then let's look
mhm,
at who are the clients, and we can develop a strategy, you know, moving forward. Doesn't matter who your target market is, we can structure a strategy. Now, I am not going to guarantee you a contract, okay? But I can guarantee you that we can help you put a business model in place, to put a business development strategy in place where we can start going after specific markets. And I think the more that you understand about procurement and the protocols and the process of procurement,
mhm,
uh, you're going to increase your knowledge, and it's going to make you be able to scale,
mhm.
become more sophisticated in understanding what are the opportunities and matching the opportunities with what either the product or service that you bring into market.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
really important. I'm wondering if we can have appointment with you so we
Yeah,
can
so you got this
your
information. So do me a favor, okay?
Mhm,
You see my email,
mhm,
send me an email
mhm,
and tell me you attended and that you're like, and we'll, in order to get free technical assistance services, we have to enroll you. So it
mhm,
just depends where you're located, and we'll find a program. Because you can see here, we got GoBiz and we got the MBDA. We're not sure how long that's going to be around. We got ProcureLA.
mhm,
My colleague Veronica, she works for we have three contracts with the city of LA. ProcureLA, and then we have the Business Source Center contracts in Mid-Wilshire and in the Hollywood Center. But we'll find a program to fit you in. So you just reach out to me, and we can go from there. Okay, I
Okay.
think that we had some other
Okay.
questions.
We do. So Mark Myers, I'm gonna allow you to talk. I know your hand kind of goes on and off, so I wasn't sure, but I'm just gonna allow you to talk. Can you hear us, Mark?
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Go ahead and ask your question, or do you no longer have a question?
Okay, let's move on.
Okay. So Mariano, I'm going to allow you to talk.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so my question is like, in regards to the contracting and stuff like that. So I know that there are certain factors as far as like, on the entity aspect, as far as like, when you have to prepare for the bid itself, whether it's getting insurance, bonding and stuff like that. So one note of the only things that I kind of have concerns about is like, in my case, I'm a small entity, and like I haven't been in business long enough. I do have experience in my specific niche, based that I was working under private companies. So I do have that experience, but as far as the entity itself, it's like freshly started. So I really don't have that history of years or to be able to present. And then also as an individual, like I'll probably be like credit would be another factor. So would those kind of things be a big setback, or is that or is there
Well,
still an opportunity?
so Mariano, so just know everybody's got to start somewhere.
Okay.
And so we got to really look at your business model and what is your business infrastructure? You know,
So
what, no,
so-
we're not, we can meet one-on-one and go over that.
got
But I'm
it.
trying to put out there, we got to look at what is your bond capacity if you need a bond. What,
Mhm.
do you have insurance? You know, your credit score in order to carry a finance, the types of contracts we pursue. You know,
Mhm.
so everybody wants the large contract. Okay, well, okay, we're gonna get rich. But no, we gotta do positive steps to build a track record in order to qualify.
Okay.
So depending on
Um,
the opportunity, that's gonna we're gonna look at, do we meet the minimum qualifications? And we can help you go over that. You know, like I recently had a client and they were in security and she saw this big contract and they wanted to go for it. And I knew that she only had 6 employees and that contract called for 6,000 hours a week of security services. Well, clearly, I know she didn't have the capacity to perform. You know, so we gotta really be realistic on what we think we can do. But if you have a question and you think it's something you can do, and then you can turn to us. Now, keep in mind, there's bond, you know, we were an SBA lender, so there could be some SBA products that maybe can help you. Okay, we're tapped into a very large network of other alternative finance lenders. Okay, there's bond assistance programs. The SBA has one. Okay, now keep in mind, we had a client that landed a contract with the Forestry Service. It was a federal contract, one of the parks up in Ventura County, and they did really well. And so the project manager with the feds, they score your performance, and it becomes a permanent part of your portfolio. And when you're bidding, if you bid on other federal contracts, they're going to look at that score. And it turned out that the project manager really liked the company. It was a woman-owned construction company, and says, "I got $1 million project up Northern California. I'd like to give it to you." She did not have the bond capacity. Her bond capacity was 400,000. So she couldn't bid on the $1 million bid. So us understanding these are the different qualifying steps to grow and stay within ourselves, but take progressive steps, understand the process and how we can build our financial and our business infrastructure so we can start scaling. And so we can get to a point where we can get $1 million contract. So those are the type of things. Okay, let's move on to the next question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So I don't see any more raised hands,
Oh.
or I don't see any more questions in the chat either.
Okay, so folks, I want to thank you. We really appreciate, you know, the individuals that get to take that extra step and get the training and learn. Those are the ones that are more likely to succeed. So, and the fact that you are an entrepreneur or a business owner means you are a leader and that you're taking the chance and you're having the confidence in yourself to go out there. You're taking your idea or your product or your service to market. And we got to make sure that we put a good business development strategy in place and let's start going for it. Okay. And with that, I want to thank everybody and may you have a great day and give us about a week to get this put on our e-library and to send out to everybody that registered a copy of the presentation. And with that, thank you very much.